more senior guys came up to us as a group on our very first day, and he said, if there's one thing I can tell you guys to carry through the rest of your career, it's to never show your weakness around here because we prey on our weak.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Venus and Mars podcast. You've got your host, Anya Shack here. And today we're getting into the male psyche, which I love to do. I do this all the time, but this is with a very special man named Chris Howe. And I'm really excited to talk to him because I have just kind of from afar watched the story of his hero's journey. And it's been really meaningful for me to see a man who has gone from addiction to being a husband, to being a stepfather, to now being a fighter, to being someone that helps others deal with the trauma and the issues that go on in their lives. He's an inspiring man. He has a beautiful story, and I'm really touched by his vulnerability and his ability to get real about what it means to be a man and all that goes on in the minds of men as it relates to relationships and fatherhood and addictions and all of these important issues that all of us face. So without further ado, welcome, Chris.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be on the show.
I love it. Well, I'm so excited to jump into it. So first, I'm actually just going to start with something fun that I love to do with all of my guests. And I'm going to ask you, in honor of Venus and Mars, what is your favorite thing about women?
Oh, God. I would say my favorite thing about women would have to be their strength and what they can show me about myself. I learn a lot. I learn a lot from women, and I always have, more so than the male role models in my life.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just taking that one in. And I think we're going to get into a lot of that today as we discuss like your life and what you've been through. I think storytelling is so important. And I would just love to hear, maybe just jump into kind of what brought you here today, hosting Authentic Adversity, doing what you're doing now, and the way that you help people. Would just love to hear how you got here.
Yeah, sure. So for myself, I battled with like substance abuse, addiction, mental health issues for about 17 years, from probably the time I was 14 or 15 until I was 32. All of that happened as a result of, I would say, a big part a result of my upbringing and my childhood and the trauma that I endured in those early years, and that's where I found my escape. It was drugs, alcohol, music, and people. So for 17 years, I was out of control, drug addict, alcoholic. I just created a wake of chaos everywhere I went. Somehow I managed to find my way into a decent job. I work for the fire department here in Canada, Niagara Falls, and that kind of that showed me some different things as well. One thing that I always talk about, that was very it was very difficult for me when I first got hired as a firefighter. One of the more senior guys came up to us as a group on our very first day, and he said, if there's one thing I can tell you guys to carry through the rest of your career, it's to never show your weakness around here because we prey on our weak. And you're hired to do a job. You suck it up, you be a man, quote unquote, be a man. Walk it off, whatever. You're going to see things that most people don't have to see, but we're paid well to do it. And, we're not paid to whine or cry about it. And that for me, because, I was harboring a lot. And that for me was very, very difficult because it was something that further solidified the fact that I couldn't share my feelings openly and honestly with my peers and my coworkers, and truly to other men especially.
Yeah.
I had to keep up this hard facade of this like firefighter, tough guy, whatever it was, right? And I saw some things that were very traumatic, and I went through a lot in my career. I managed to sober up after multiple suicide attempts, a lot of really, really, really low rock bottoms. Like I always say, every rock bottom has a trap door. You can get lower. It's just
Mm,
where do you want to stop, right? So for me, at age 32, I got sober, clean and sober, and I haven't, I'm turning 45 next month. I haven't had a drink or a drug since then. And in that time, I really did a lot of like deep work on myself
mm,
and very uncomfortable work. I got to know myself, which I never did before.
yeah.
I got to redefine what a man is and what a
Yeah.
man could be.
Yeah.
Um, in that time, I started working with others. I started going into the jails and the prisons, helping other guys, change their life or lives. And I really learned the power in sharing our secrets, our deepest, darkest secrets that we, at least for myself, I thought I would take to the grave. And, to share that with
Mhm.
another human being, I found a lot of freedom in that. And it was a real liberating time in my
Mm,
life where I could actually admit these things and really change the trajectory of my life. Um, so I got, I'm an addict at heart, right? I got kind of addicted to this, working with others and giving back, and I kind of
yeah.
loved it, and to me, I dove headfirst into a lot of things. Fighting was one of them. I
Yep.
was boxing and Muay Thai fighting, uh, and training, uh, here and in Thailand, for a number of years. um I dove into like, just anything healthy, and the main focus was the helping others and the giving back piece. um in that time, I had several uh failed relationships, or relationships that really were not right for me, but they were learning relationships.
Mhm.
I was learning how to be uh a regular functioning human in the
Yeah.
world who
Yeah.
didn't depend on drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And so, I think a lot of these, I learned a lot from these women who came into my life, and I think they all prepared me for my current wife.
Yeah.
And her and I met at a very, both of us were just out of really, really trying relationships. I
Yeah.
was in a long distance relationship that I was flying back and forth to the Caribbean every week. Um,
Wow.
she was in a I want to say a 4-year marriage at the time that wasn't working out, and both of us we were not seeking a relationship whatsoever. And truth be told, we met on Tinder.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, it's hilarious. I mean, she at the time lived 4 hours away from me. And I'm an old guy. Like I was resistant to this idea of online
Yeah.
dating. I always said, like, if I can't find a partner or a relationship face to face in person, like, there's something wrong with me. I gotta this, but it's an old way of thinking. I didn't grow up with the internet. I didn't grow up with like
Yeah.
smartphones, right?
Totally.
Um, so my friends just like convinced me. I just after, dates that were just so not great, not doing anything
Yeah.
for me. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
said, just go on the app, you'll have fun. And like with so much hesitation, I was kicking and screaming. They signed me up for this thing. And within a week of being on that on Tinder, I matched with my wife.
That's
Um,
hilarious to me.
yeah, and she lived 4 hours away, as I said, and we just both happened to be in Toronto. So she lived 2 hours north of Toronto. I lived about an hour and a half kind of west of Toronto.
Yeah.
We were both in Toronto at the same time, so our locations matched up. And so I saw her profile and I was like, well, first of all, she's stunning.
Yeah.
I was taken by her beauty.
Yeah.
Um, and second of all, the first thing on her profile said she's sober. Second thing says she's into Muay Thai. Um, and then the third thing says she's a tattoo artist. And these are all things that, I mean, I don't know if this is going to be video or
Yeah, it will
audio or
be.
whatever,
It
but
will be.
I have tattoos.
Chris has tattoos, you guys. Just a
Yeah.
few.
And I grew up around I was getting tattooed since I was,
Yeah.
14 or 15 years old. And it's just a culture that I kind of was enamored with since a kid.
Yeah.
And so we planned, we said, let's meet up. This is no strings attached. We don't want relationships, whatever. And of course, being that we were 4 hours away from each other, it was kind of a commitment to meet up. We didn't meet that night. She was flying out to a tattoo convention. So, and of course, as I said, I'm an older guy. So I'm like, hey, I hope you don't think this is weird, but can I call you?
I love it.
And we talked on the phone, and that conversation, it just didn't stop until we finally met. And I don't know, I can only speak for myself, but I think that when I met her, we had an amazing night, and she was flying out the next morning, and it just that night turned into the life we have today. Like, we were inseparable. From that night, we couldn't get enough of each other. We were calling, texting, FaceTime, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, traveling back and forth to see each other. She has a son, and at the time he was 4 years old. So, I was very, against kids, like, not for myself.
Okay.
I think kids are great. I just said, I don't want them. I didn't see myself, and it was, an insecurity of mine.
Yeah.
I think I didn't see myself as fit to be a father. I didn't, I had been for the majority of my life, I thought I figured myself as a failure. And,
right.
I thought I was not fit to raise a child. And, after some time, she introduced me to him, and, the connection with him happened just as quick as the connection with her. It was like, oh my God, this kid is amazing. And there was no reluctance from him either, which was, at 4 years old and your parents had just split. Now there's this new guy, and it was just like, I was just his buddy, and he was happy to see me. And, it was amazing. All the pieces just fell right into place for us.
Yeah.
Not to say that we haven't had our hardships, like any couple does, but, and she, we've been together, we've been married about 2 years now. We've been together about 4. And, she's really pushed me to do some things that were out of my comfort zone, like, starting my own podcast, and, doing that is, another piece of kind of giving back. And,
I love it.
interviewing people about their, personal stories of overcoming adversities in life. And, me on my own, I would have never done that. I wouldn't have the guts to do it. But with her, kind of by my side, and her reassuring me that it's, you're worthy of something like this, and you are good enough, and this, like, constant support system, beside me at all times.
Yeah.
Honestly, I felt like there's nothing I can't do with her.
That's
There's nothing I
Chris.
can't try with her.
Yeah.
She's an amazing woman, and very strong, very powerful, very talented, very, she does it all. She really does.
That's beautiful. I love this. I'm excited to jump into more around your relationship. But first, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned, like, as you were talking about your story, that it was super important for you to be able to open up to men. And only when you were able to do that, did things start to change. What do you think is the difference, from a male perspective, in regards to opening up to men versus opening up to women? Like, what is that distinction that is so key in your life?
Well, it's, to me, I was brought up, my father wasn't a real hard guy, but he was a business guy, and pretty cutthroat that way. But I was really, my grandfather was a really hard man, and I always looked up to him, and I always thought that, there was this thing about him, you don't cry, you don't, you can, if you have a problem, you can fight it, fight over it, and then have a beer afterwards or whatever. He's one of these kind of guys, right?
Right.
And I think for me, a lot of those, like, those myths, or those false, they're false truths, or whatever, I guess, that a lot of men have, that we always have to be this hard, stoic figure. So opening up to another man was a lot of, women, when I could talk to women, because most women were open and honest, and it would land on softer ears. With a man, it was always this, what is he going to think of me if I share this piece? What is he, if I let him in on this vulnerable piece of my past, is he going to think differently of me? Is he going to treat me differently? Is he going to go tell other people about it and then they're going to think differently about it or about me? Um,
Mm,
it, it was a trust thing, right? Like I didn't trust my secrets with for fear of being judged.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. So, and it seems like perhaps there's this like element of, it's so interesting that to develop trust within
Mhm.
yourself, you needed to develop trust with other men
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, for sure. And what I did find when I finally did muster the, with uh, with hesitation, of course, but as I sort of dipped my toes in those waters of like, and it came for me, it came in the form of through recovery programs where I could talk to another man about things, admit some of the things I did when I was drinking and using that
Yeah.
I was very ashamed of.
Yeah.
And what I did find, and I still find today, is that every time I share something that I think is like something to be judged or something that would possibly change someone's opinion of me, they always, 9 times out of 10, they'll say, I have the exact same story, but the details are a little different.
Yep.
And, they'll share something that's equally vulnerable to them. And it gives me that assurance that it's kind of free trade back and forth where you know what I mean. You tell me a secret, I'll tell you a secret, and then we hold each other's secrets, and that's how I built trust up, and to the point
Yeah.
where I started to really find a lot of freedom in that, and
Yeah.
sometimes people couldn't shut me up about like
Yeah.
I'd be oversharing with
Yeah. It's like a
strangers almost.
spectrum for
Yeah,
sure.
the addict in me wants to overshare, right?
I
Yeah,
hear you. Yeah, I totally get
yeah,
that. It's really interesting. I read a quote somewhere once that was like, the most universal truths are the darkest ones.
yeah.
Like the thing that you think is the worst thing is the thing that somebody else will relate to you most over.
Yeah, it's so true. And some of my best friends today came by that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They came from sharing something and that them just
Yeah.
saying, "You know what? That happened to me too."
Yeah.
And it's I think for men it's a bond that, okay, shit, like that was hard to talk about, but now somebody else has the opportunity to talk about it and we
Yeah.
can share that together, and
Yeah.
we always have that pact almost
Yep.
with each other. Um and then it becomes I don't have any friends that I don't share like that with. I don't
Yeah.
have any friends that, male friends especially, that I can't be vulnerable around, that I can't share my, and if I do, I don't, if there is ever any resistance that way, well, I just create space
Yeah.
from that person because I need to have those people in my life, and I need to have those strong men who aren't afraid to share
Yep.
in their life. And a lot of us are married, and a lot of us are in parental roles, and
Yeah.
that opens the door to conversations that I need to be able to have
Yeah.
in order
It's
to be a
huge.
better partner, a better father, and a better person all around.
I love that. So I want to kind of like close the loop on like the first part of your life as we move into
Sure.
a little bit further. So I addictions come in so many forms, right? Like just it's like a full gamut, full spectrum. Like I'm thinking of people that, undersleep and overwork, people that overeat, right? People that are
Right.
just there's so many different types of addictions. And I find that there's always the addictions are the, you know, the thing that we're using to mask a deeper root issue. Like it's just a coping mechanism. And so I'm curious, like what, if you could really describe it, what was that kind of like root issue that you were just wrestling with inside of yourself that you can think of?
That led me that kind of drove my addictions,
Yeah.
that I was not good enough and
Right.
unworthy of love. And that was the driver for a lot of it. Mhm.
Gosh, it's just so relatable.
I think
So
everybody has it to a degree, right?
many of us feel that way. It's just so relatable. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think I think we pick it up as children, and somewhere along the line somebody's made us feel that way and we believe them.
Yeah.
And that person who probably made us feel that way, I'm sure had no idea that they made us feel that way and that we
Yeah.
carried this thing for the rest of our life. But I do always try to make a point to say to remind people or remind myself as well that like a lot of times the people who raised us, you know, they weren't in touch with themselves. They weren't in
Mm.
touch with, how to be a good parent. There wasn't all the information,
Yeah.
out there that there is today.
Yeah.
And, it was kids raising kids and,
Yeah.
damage was done that nobody could see.
Nobody
Nobody
could
could
see.
see it. Yeah. So I don't lay blame on anybody for that, but I
Totally.
certainly know that negative core belief of mine was that I
Yeah.
was not worthy of love.
So, as you've taken kind of ownership and responsibility for this, because that's kind of what the journey really is for all of us, where we realize, you know what, it's no one's fault, but now
Yeah.
it's my job to figure this out if I want to live differently than my parents did.
Right.
Um, what would you say are differences in the way that you step parent now
Mhm.
than you would have probably if you hadn't gone through the journey you went on? What are the
Yeah.
different ways? Yeah.
Well, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, for me, I've done extensive therapy, both inpatient and out. And I've really done some digging on my childhood and been able to pull some pieces out that really
Mm,
gave me some awareness about how not to be as a parent
mm,
and how you can be damaging, as I kind of said before, without knowing you're being damaging or
yeah.
y- you know, um, simple things like holding space for a child,
Mm,
um, you know, simple, uh, talking about feelings, not, these are my parents would yell and scream at me, call me names. Sometimes there was violence involved, but I don't ever remember there being a time when somebody said, "How do you feel? How does that make you feel?"
yeah.
And to give me the space to actually talk about my emotions, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's a big thing for us in our house right now. Um, we're always the question is always, "How do you feel? How does that make you feel? How do you
Mhm.
think that makes us feel?" Um, and it's not in a punitive way. It's just like this. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
Our son is we do a lot of online meetings and in-person meetings as well. He's in those spaces, so he's hearing people sharing openly and honestly. And I believe that he's kind of learning sort of in the background. He's learning about this, like, wow, people can share and be open and honest about things, and nobody's going to judge them.
Yeah.
Validating a kid's feelings is so important that, um, rather than being reactive and that sort of thing. And really the simple things like, you know, um, getting down on the floor and playing with a child
Yeah.
rather than handing them a toy and saying, "Go off to the room," or handing them a video game and say, "Go off to,"
Yeah.
my kid loves video games, but, there's sometimes when we have to take them away from him. And, I think that, an important piece there is, we don't just take the game away and say, "Okay, now go find fun somewhere else." It's like, take the game away. Now let's play, let's do something interactive together. Let's play a board game. Let's do, you know, Connect Four, or let's, you know what I mean? Something that's you will keep him occupied, but thinking and community minded,
Right.
talking to us about things. So I think the biggest thing there, yeah, just keeping the lines of communication open and giving, holding space for a child is
Yeah.
the biggest thing that I think any parent can do. And
Right. That's
yeah,
so true. It's like, I think all of those things, I mean, they're building self-worth because you can give a child everything.
yeah,
Financially, you can give a child, all the best things in the world, but if they don't feel seen, like they
yeah.
don't feel loved.
hmm Yeah, definitely. Well, that's it, right? And
Yeah.
even the little things like, you playing sports or whatever.
Yeah.
There's no, of course everybody likes to win, but the first question is like, did you have fun? It's not that, it's not it's did you have fun? Was that good for you? Like, did you enjoy the game? Was it
Yeah.
nice to see your friends? That's what it's about, right? And
Yeah.
um yeah, it's yeah, I don't I have I have a hard time sometimes because I can feel my parents' behavior coming out in me sometimes, or starting to
Yes.
like bubble up, and I really have to check it before it
Mm,
boils over, if you know what I mean. And so that having that awareness about what was damaging to me, and the fact that, okay, I've identified these key pieces in my childhood and I don't want that to be repeated. And I was very,
right.
very, very scared of that for a long time.
Right.
Am I gonna mess this kid up? Am I gonna repeat some of the things, because it's just been instilled for 45
Exactly.
years. I've known only this, right?
I
So,
hear
and
you.
and we do, our family, we all take part in like, we do child psychology, the 3 of us.
Love
Like,
it.
so we have a psychologist, child psychologist, that my wife and I meet with, and then our son's name is Ezra, that Ezra meets with. And so we're all working on this, like, sort of progression of life together, right? Like, we're all
Yeah.
learning. So I think
Yeah.
it's I think that's a big thing, right? To always be learning and always be teachable when it comes to especially
Totally.
parenting.
I
Yeah.
love that. That's so good. I was actually just going to ask you, I was like, what do you struggle with? And it's all those like little, just being aware of all those little micro moments
Yeah.
that seem to just like, right away, I know that there's a pattern that, I remember when I was a kid, my dad would always like just rage super intensely if like
Yeah.
some little thing was done differently than he thought it should be.
Right.
And I realized that he thought that like by someone not forgetting to turn the light off or something, it was like a personal offense to him,
To him.
and
Yeah.
that's why he would rage. And so I know that now and it's all good, but sometimes I catch myself like if someone, I don't know, made a mess or did something like ridiculous, I'm like, okay, this is not a personal offense against me.
Yeah.
They just made a mistake or they just made it, they did something. That's it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I can totally relate to that, because I'm the same way. And there's been times, like, don't get me wrong, there's been a lot of times where I've kind of raged out, um
Yeah.
when I've been pushed. And I shouldn't say I've been pushed, but when I've allowed myself to be,
Yeah.
to kind of stay in that spin cycle of like selfishness around, yeah,
Yeah.
that he made a mess or whatever, but I didn't look at the fact that, well, in that mess making, he was actually in being creative and having fun. And
Exactly.
then I'm yelling and screaming about the mess, and then you know, I have to go and make amends for that, and tell
Yeah.
him,
That's the
when it does
part.
happen, if I don't as I said, like, nobody's perfect, and if I can't check myself before that happens,
Yeah.
um, then I need to model the behavior of somebody who can take ownership of a mistake,
Mm,
bring it to somebody, speak, as I said, man to man, or whatever, with him and I, like, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. You did not deserve that. You did nothing wrong. And I was, I am totally at fault for that. And, you know, let's make a mess together. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Or
I
let's do,
love that.
and as much as it, like, I'm I'm I like my things to be where I put them, and where, but
Yeah.
as much as it, it's a struggle for me. It's a teachable moment for me as well, right? So I get to make a mess with him, or like horse around, or like play some kind of sport upstairs and knock things over and not care about it for a while. It
Mm,
allows me to be a child again too, right?
yeah.
Yeah, he's really allowed me to kind of like tap into that inner child in
Yeah.
me, and soften up, and kind of like lighten up when I really need to,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
otherwise I wouldn't on my own, right? And
Totally.
yeah,
I love it. That's
yeah,
that's so great. As you guys are all listening to this and these storytellings, I'm sure you can find yourselves in these stories. So many of us have very similar experiences. And right away, I think of the balance of masculine and feminine. This is something I'm really passionate about. And when I think about a man who rages out. It's a man that's missing. He's not in touch with that feminine essence. And so when you think about masculinity, it's really into order. And when you think about femininity, it's all about chaos. And because in femininity, creation happens. And so when the masculine is not in sync with the feminine, his order becomes like a dictatorship or like tyranny. It goes to the far end. And so like those are the kind of moments where I'm remembering my dad, and I'm remembering, I don't know, we can connect it to like dictators, to like Stalin, and I'm Russian, so I always have to throw in a little bit of
Yeah.
that. Um and just generally, like, men when they rage, people get scared. This is
Yeah.
something that is like a cultural truism, that men are the ones that scare us when they're angry.
Yeah. Yeah. I've eh, nothing's broken my heart like seeing my stepson scared when I have acted out like that. Nothing
Mm,
nothing has hurt me that as bad as that feeling that I
mm,
got, that, I mean, it's only happened once or twice, but
yeah,
the feeling when I could see his little eyes looking at me and actually see fear. um it was, I instantly recoiled, and like
yeah,
that was heartbreaking to see. And the fact that mm, my missteps led
yeah.
to that. There is a lot of amends to be made in times like that. And
Mm,
I do my best every day
yeah,
to continue to make those. It's not like it's a living amends. It's like
yeah,
I've learned from that mistake, and I never want to see that look in your eye again, because of me,
yeah,
and yeah, it's a scary thing. And my wife is a real uh, uh, she's a real fighter in every
yeah,
sense of the word,
yeah.
and she can weather any storm even
Mm,
when I can't handle myself. And she's 14 years younger than me, and she is somebody who has wisdom beyond,
mm.
beyond her years, beyond my years. I don't know where she gets it. I don't know, like, she just, I don't know. She has a way. She can just look at me, and I know, okay, she just gives me one look, and I know, okay, it's time. I haven't, I'm out of balance. I need to check myself, or I need to,
Yeah,
and in those moments, in those storms, that she's able to kind of like keep her, um, keep her straight line and stay
yeah,
balanced. I've really had to depend on her. Um, and that's a hard thing for, I guess, me as a man to say, right?
yeah,
Um, I look to her for a lot of things, and support, and kind of, writing my path when I stray. She
yeah,
always is there to do that for me.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
try my best to do that for her, of course, but I feel like I lean on her a little more than she leans on me. And
yeah,
that for me, we talked a little bit about that off air, but there's been a lot, with our relationship, that's been very revealing to me, as a, to sort of find my place as a man. And she's
yeah.
taught me a lot about that. Yeah.
Let's let's dive right in there. I'm
Yeah.
just so keen to do that. And thank you for your vulnerability and your honesty, and just the way you tell your story is so just like engaging and just like beautiful to hear. So
Thank you.
thank you. So I have a question. So I guess, we talk a lot about masculine men leading, feminine women, submitting, and there are a lot of nuances to that conversation. But when you just
Yeah.
think of the phrase like you leading your relationship, like how do you think about it, and like what is your mindset around that?
Me leading it?
Yeah, I'm
I
curious.
don't I don't. I don't look at one person leading it. I look at us being, side by side.
Yeah.
I really, our relationship isn't, it truly is like, we're standing beside each other. Nobody's leading the relationship. There's
Beautiful.
times there's times
Yeah.
for sure when one
Yeah.
person has to take the lead because the
Yeah.
other person is going through something.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing about it, because you've got this give and take.
Yeah.
And you know that, you know, I mean, just this year alone, my wife and I, there's been months where I've really needed to, you know, I've felt I've hit a bit of a valley, you
Yeah.
know, I've hit a low emotionally or whatever. And she's kind of had to kind of pick up her game a
Of
little bit
course.
and help and lift me up to come back to center with her.
Yeah.
And so our relationship is, you know, truly, you know, it's that we're, can you hear those dogs?
What is it? Oh no, not at all.
I've got two pit bulls upstairs, and they're they're going wild. Somebody must be at the door. Um, yeah. So our relationship is it's not one person leading it.
Cool.
Yeah, and if anything, I can honestly say that you know, more times than not, she's taking the lead,
That's
especially when it comes to the parenting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely. That's something that I've heard many times. I think that's so beautiful. And when I think of like feminine strength and power and all of those things that you're expressing, like there's a real like sense of being a visionary, like
Yeah.
this like intuitive knowing of like what needs to happen. And it seems like that's what she kind of puts forth. But there's definitely like on the masculine side, there's kind of like a taking of that vision and
Yeah.
and helping it kind of work, right? Like creating the order and the logic for it all to work out. So those are the things that I'm thinking about lately, and I'm so curious about your relationship and how you balance your polarity and your like
Mhm.
your more intimate side of the relationship and then your business side, because I know you're business partners too. So I'm
Yeah.
so curious how you guys find your balance.
Hmm. It's it's different. I think it ebbs and flows really.
Yeah.
For us, yeah, like we own a tattoo shop together. And I'll be 100% honest. I'm just a name on the
I
paperwork.
love it.
She knows, you know, I've
Beautiful.
owned businesses in the past, but she runs this business like a well-oiled machine. Um, she's done this, you know, been tattooing for over 15 years. She's owned
Yeah.
other shops in the past.
Yeah.
That is her baby for
Yeah.
sure. I help
Yeah.
promote it. I happen to, because she came to move to where I lived,
Yeah.
rather than me go to move with them. Um, I send all my tattooed friends to her. That's my part in it, really.
Love it.
You know, when it comes to big business decisions, yeah, we have conversations, but you know, I would always go with her gut instinct
That's beautiful.
before my like trying to be overly logical about things. I'll go
Yeah.
by her gut, because I have a tendency to um yeah, to try to be too logical or too um you know, I will see the numbers and she sees
Yeah.
the vision, you know?
Yeah.
And so I always trust her vision over my numbers. But
Wow. Man,
yeah.
if more people in the world did that, I wonder where we'd be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and don't get me wrong, she does come to me with a lot of things, and I have
Yeah.
input. You know, my life experience is a lot different than hers.
Mm,
So if it's something that she knows she can pull from me, she does.
yeah.
And if, you know, and otherwise she's, you know, she kind of manages it on her own. Um, as far as yeah, so that's a business side. You know, as far as like the household stuff goes, parenting, like I 100% trust her judgment when it comes to parenting. You know, he's my stepson, but I don't like to call myself, you know, I don't like to call him he's my
Right.
son. His
Right.
father is not, he's in the picture but nowhere near. So they're not in person ever, really. So, you know, I'm the
He's
father
your
figure.
son.
I'm yeah, I
Yeah.
don't yeah. And I I have like I have a totally different relationship with him than she does.
Yeah.
Him and I have adult conversations. It's unbelievable. Like I pick him up from school and we talk, and I could swear I'm sitting next to a 18-year-old kid. and he's answering my questions and whatever. And then his mom comes home and he like reverts to, he's 9, but he goes back to like he's 6 with her.
Right.
So we have two really polar opposite relationships. And
Right.
with me, um, I use our time together because his mom works late. So, I have a few hours after school with him. So I pick him up from school every day, have like 3 or 4 hours. And I use that time to make to bond and have those conversations that I talked about, and also the playful moments that
Yeah.
I need and that he also needs. He
Yeah.
teaches me a lot that way. Um,
Yeah.
but when it comes to, parental decisions,
Yeah.
again, like I do take
Yeah.
there's I could probably count on maybe one hand how many times I've disagreed with a decision that she wanted to make or that she
Totally.
decided for him. Um,
Yeah.
and then, we talked a little bit about this too, but like as far as the hobby stuff goes with her and the real, something that was um I loved when we got together that we shared this love for fighting and
Yeah.
training Muay Thai and combat sports and stuff like that. But it's something that for me, and again, this is a hard thing for me to say as a man. She's done much better than I have in those sports, and and I've actually had a really really difficult time. Like, so something that we shared together at the beginning and loved, I actually let put a wedge in between us, and this is a really strange um male competitive, like me not allowing her to this is gonna sound wrong, but allowing
Yeah.
her to enjoy her success,
Yeah.
because I couldn't stop comparing my, what I saw as, you know, failures. I couldn't
Yeah.
stop I couldn't stop comparing the 2, and I really let that put a wedge, between us for a long time, and it was totally it was my pride and my ego that were standing in the way of me just saying, "You know what? I am just so proud of you." And believe me, I felt it, but I had such a
Yeah.
hard time saying it. And I'm
Yeah.
proud of you, and so I've recently, torn my ACL, and I'm unable to train or fight or anything like that. So
Yeah.
I've been forced to the sidelines by
Yeah.
an injury. And at first it sounds like, to me it sounded like, this is the worst thing ever. I can't train for a year, but it's actually put me in a place that I'm really quite proud of, and it's allowed me the space to assume the spectator's seat and the supporter's seat and
Mm.
actually settle into it, where I
Mm.
didn't have to think about a fight coming up. I didn't have to compare anything. I'm able to just sit back, talk to her about her training, her fights, help, kind of coach on the sidelines with her, um, and really be the supportive partner that
Mm.
I should have been the whole time.
Mm.
And and I am so proud of her for everything she does. And she's so talented, she's so strong,
Yeah.
she's so amazing in so many ways, and I'm proud of everything that she does. But that one thing, as I said, it was this ego thing, this pride thing that was standing in the way of
Yeah.
me being that like supportive. And why should I, even if I wasn't, we're two different people with two, always different opponents, where and I
Yeah.
was allowing this like this this man brain to like take over and go, no,
It's
no,
the
no, this is,
machista brain.
yeah, yeah. And it's like, it's so ridiculous when I look back at it now, but I let it
Yeah.
consume me for so long in this like, oh, my wife's, that's all I ever heard about is how she's a beast and she's this. And I know that stuff, but
Yeah.
I couldn't accept it because my masculine, like hyper masculine brain was taking over the sensitive side.
Yeah.
But and it was telling me, hang on, you're supposed to be the fighter, your wife can't be this. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's bullshit, really. It really is absolute bullshit. And sitting back now where I am, and able to really appreciate and cherish the moments with her in her
Yeah.
successes and in some of her losses.
Yeah. Of course.
It's really been eye-opening, and it's really, um as I said at the beginning, women have taught me a lot about myself, and she going through that with her and having her um undeniable support even when I wasn't being the
Yeah.
partner I should have been
Yeah.
was everything for me. I needed that person to stick with me while
Yeah.
I kind
Figured
of
it
rode that
out.
roller coaster and came out and finally figured that out. And I'm the type that, it takes me longer than most to figure that stuff out sometimes.
Well,
But
also when it comes to figuring it out, it's like you talk about ego and pride, and
mhm,
I hear that, but like, what do you think ego and pride were actually covering up? Like, was there like a deeper feeling?
yeah, it's the same thing I talked about earlier. It's I'm not worthy
Yeah. I
and I'm
knew
not
it.
good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. The ego and pride was doing the same thing that the drugs and alcohol were doing
Right.
earlier in my life.
Right.
It's just
Right.
a different mask or a
Different
different
mask.
escape from yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
it's thank you for expressing that. It's such a
Mhm.
big, I mean, it's so ubiquitous, like the self-worth thing coming from men, and I also and women who maybe didn't have like a stellar relationship with dad, and so also
Yeah,
developed like a strong masculine, hyper masculine part of themselves, to
yeah,
where they always felt like they needed to prove themselves
yeah,
to be loved. And I know that was my journey, so letting go of that has been my whole 20s. But so like I feel that like on such a deep level, this like way that we're all so connected, like men and
yeah.
women, this like self-worth piece.
Yeah, I think it's universal for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that my wife, she she would share those same feelings, and in
Yeah.
fact, she has. I don't want to speak.
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but
Yeah.
that's we've had these conversations, and my uh, my emotions were echoed by hers, and she
Yeah.
she talked about her childhood in much the same way as I did, and as I said before, like the stories were the same, the details were different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
um
I love that. So Chris, how now when you go back to fighting,
mhm.
how are you going to be different?
I'll be older. I'll be, um, yeah. Uh, to be honest, I think it's at this point, if I go back,
Yeah.
I'm really starting to settle into this, into like the peace and the serenity of like nonviolence,
Okay.
and I don't mean, it's not. It's a sport,
Yeah.
and you know what I mean, and it includes violence, and it's part of the sport. But I'm kind of settled into this spectator seat, and as I said,
Mm,
I'm going to be 45.
yeah.
um it's well past any fighter's prime, and I'm not, so something I've really looked at for myself is that, like, I've never made money fighting. That's never been my job.
Yeah.
I'm a firefighter.
Yeah.
And so if I keep injuring myself, and if my fights or my losses are um controlling my emotional well-being so much, maybe that's not
Mm,
the place that I need to put myself again.
right.
So I'm kind of at that point. I it would be still a year before I can do anything with my knee.
Mm,
So I've got a lot of time to think, and you know, maybe I return to it in just uh, in a training capacity where,
mm,
it's about exercise and moving my body, and respecting my joints and my like my body that keeps falling apart on me, like, um and and it's that, again, there's another pride thing where I'm aging, but I still think I'm 21. Like,
yeah.
my brain still says you're 21, you could do anything, and you're Superman.
Yeah.
Which is great sometimes, but
Yeah.
I mean, until you start falling apart. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I don't know. And so, if I could picture myself going back, I think I would go back into it if I were to take another fight with zero expectations,
Yeah.
no pressure, and and I think more of a respect for myself and my well-being
Exactly.
all around. So mental, physical, and emotional.
More of
Yeah,
like a
I think
self development piece
yeah,
versus like I need to win this fight to prove myself.
for sure. And I need to do this for me, not
Yeah.
for anybody else. I need to do this because I actually want to do this, and this is my, this is something that I think that a big thing for me is if it's not fun, don't do it.
Yeah.
And it stopped being fun about 3 years ago for me,
Yeah.
and I kept doing it. So
Yeah.
and my body keeps breaking, and
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's something there saying, "Hang on, like you're not listening to that if it's not fun, don't do it mantra." So your body's gonna start breaking down and showing you instead of
Showing you.
you listening. Yeah.
Your
So I think
body,
there's something there.
our bodies talk to us, that's for sure. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I'm excited for you to like go into this new phase and chapter of your life. And I wanted to kind of ask like one other question specific to you and your wife. Like, what do you
Yeah.
think? Because I know this is interesting. Everyone that listens to Venus and Mars is always like finding tidbits and information about relationships and just like how people are relating, men and women. So, what do you think that is something that your wife has helped you learn about women that you might have had wrong before?
I don't know that I had it wrong before because I think I've always viewed women as strong.
Right.
Um, but I think she's amplified that
Mm,
strength and she's shown me that um that women can be, strong, talented, beautiful, soft, hard, like whatever they need to be. I
mm,
think it's their resilience. She's shown me resilience that women have that I probably wasn't as aware of. And I
mm,
see that in her through, she works a long day at work dealing with people, tattooing people. She's making the lunches for the kid, driving him to school, going to work, then, going to training before work, and then maybe another training session after work, then coming home, you know, sitting down, getting some food and then doing the bedtime routine and all this stuff, I've picked the kid up, spent some fun time with him and probably gone and got a workout in my day. That,
yeah,
and she's done 20 different things
yeah,
and still comes out, like so strong, so resilient. She has been through, I mean, she's been through a lot in her life,
yeah,
post recovery, or sorry, pre recovery rather,
yeah,
and post really. But she she lived a lot of years
yeah,
before she wasn't in her active addiction for longer than maybe 5 or 6 years, but they were hard years,
yeah.
very, very hard. And yeah, the resilience that she kind of displays and shows me every day is like quite awe inspiring.
That's so beautiful. On that
Yeah.
note, I think I just think that's such a perfect place to end. I think we've talked about some really important elements around self-worth and just the masculine psyche and what's going on in your mind when these like moments come up when you feel like your ego is getting the best of you. And so thank you for expressing all of that. And I'm so happy to get this story out to everybody. And I wanted to let everyone know kind of where they can find you if they've resonated with what you're talking about, where they can just, yeah, give some details on where they can locate you.
Yeah, for sure. Instagram's the best place.
Okay.
My personal Instagram is _Chris_How_. And then the podcast, um, Chris Howe was taken, and Chris Howe 101, Chris Howe 202.
Yeah.
Everything was taken, so I had to use underscores. But the podcast Instagram is
Okay.
authentic adversity.
Yep.
You can also check that out on YouTube,
Cool.
or any of the listening platforms, Spotify video as well. It's out on pretty much every listening platform that I could find.
Yeah.
But what I really, really want to get people to is the YouTube page, because
Cool.
that's been the hardest to get people. It's been hard to get people from other platforms over there.
Totally.
So yeah, check out the videos there. There's lots of amazing guests and great
Yeah.
stories there.
I love that. I'm going to put all of the links down below the episode, so no worries.
Perfect.
People will have them there. And what are you up to for the next couple months? Like, what's your most important mission?
Well, we've got a busy couple months.
Okay.
We just bought a new shop, so we're going to be moving shops. We've got an artist coming over from Russia to come and work with
Oh,
us. So that's been a
Russia.
yeah, yeah. So we're sponsoring her and her family to come over,
Oh,
and
nice.
she's an amazing artist. She's got a husband and a kid that's around our son's age.
Wow.
So definitely they wanted out of Moscow. So
Yeah.
yeah, and so we're super happy to facilitate the move, and really happy to
Cool.
have her start with us. We got some new artists starting, so it's going to be, I think, a big time for the shop. Um, we've got we're in the midst of moving. We got a little condo in Tulum, Mexico, and we're in the midst of moving out to the west coast of Mexico. So selling our place, moving out,
Cool.
you know, and surgery for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting. And then the next couple months, our kid is going to be keeping us super busy. He's got a lacrosse season coming up, so that's going to be lots of traveling,
Love it.
lots of games. And my wife said something to me today. She met with a friend who was talking about a breakup that she had
Mm,
with her, I guess, ex now, and that the person that she was talking to is saying that um she kind of didn't know what happened. She let the rest of her life take over and didn't give the relationship the attention it deserved,
yeah.
and she didn't show up for the relationship the way she would have liked to. So we had a
Yeah.
conversation this morning just saying, like, um let's really, like, I think that was for my wife a lot. It was really introspective for her, and she said, let's not waste the moments that we have together. Let's really try to focus on all the positives. And
Mm,
if there's anything negative that we're dwelling on or that we keep bringing up, let's do our part, both of us, and just
yeah.
like pushing that aside, and like let's find the positive in everything, because you know we need to continue to show up for each other and be in tune with each other's needs. And so I think, it sounds a little funny, but I think the next couple months are going to be interesting with that kind of mission,
Yeah.
um like at the forefront. So we're
Yeah.
actually going to be proactively
Yeah.
making identifying, like naming and identifying when we're dwelling on something negative, and
Yeah.
really, like, really making the most of the moments that we have together, which is yeah, I mean, it's I think I'm really excited. I know that she is too. So it's exciting for the whole family, and I know that a lot of like real good quality family time will come out of that, and that's really what
Mm,
all of this is about.
mm. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Beautiful piece of advice for everybody listening. I will just kind of like put a bow on that whole like beautiful monologue in the sense that, we spend so much time and money and energy on degrees and on our jobs and focusing on all these things. And we just like do not pay attention to our relationship. And then on
Hmm.
our deathbed, the only thing we remember is our relationships. And
Yeah.
so it's just so silly how we do this really stupid thing where we do the exact reverse of what we actually desire to be doing. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just a matter of, reprioritizing
yeah,
and having that constant connection with what's most important.
I love it. Well,
Yeah.
cheers to that. And I hope you've all enjoyed this episode. Until next time.